Welcome, mi gente. Welcome back to my channel and to another interview. I want to quickly point out I'm wearing glasses today. I know y'all aren't used to seeing me with glasses, but one of my eyes is really irritated right now, and so it's kind of red, so I have to wear glasses. So anyways, today we have a special interview. We have here Pseudo Guru, but your name is Ray, which is actually short for your full name, which is an Indian name.
Exactly, Rajesh.
Rajesh, okay. And so, well, first I want to thank you for agreeing to do this interview and for coming onto my channel. For those of you that don't know who Ray is, I actually found his channel because his Ancestry DNA video got recommended to me. And I actually did see a few of you guys commenting under his video. But Ray is half Dominican and half Indian. So I found that to be a very interesting mix because it's not a very common mix. And your DNA results were also very interesting because it literally reflected that you were pretty much half, like literally half Indian. I think it was a split right between North and South Indian. And then your Dominican mix was pretty much the typical mix of your average Dominican, about an even amount, more or less, of European and African ancestry, and a little bit of native DNA in there. So Ray, for those who don't know about you, your channel is still fairly new, but just tell the audience what your channel is about and what you want it to be in the future.
Not much. I mean, really, it was just about like really how to enjoy all the different aspects of life, you know, like and really to just improve on some things. Like I probably, talk very briefly about stocks because honestly, it's a very easy way to financial freedom, a very lazy way to make a lot of money. And people who aren't in stocks, they get into it. But I haven't even started talking about that right now. I'm just talking about the IQs, how to get your brain to be healthy. I also dabble into ketosis, pretty much, just almost anything that has to do with bringing you peace of mind and enjoyment for like the rest of your life, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. So it seems like you're promoting like an overall general wellness of the mind and body and things like that. So you're trying to keep it positive, seems like.
Yeah, that pretty much like a life guru, but that's why I called it Pseudo Guru. I'm in my early 30s, so it's like, it's not like I'm one of these 60-year-old gurus that pretty much have twice as much experience as I do, but
yeah,
quite a bit, and I think I could help quite a few people out.
Okay, nice. All right, so now let's get into your actual background. So I believe I heard you mention in your Ancestry video that you were actually born in DR, right?
In Santo Domingo.
Okay, in Santo Domingo. Okay, and how long did you live in DR?
Between 2 and 3 years. I came over here, and shortly after, I definitely had like my third birthday.
Okay, so you probably don't remember too much of living there, but since you came back, or since you came to the U.S., have you gone back to DR pretty often and, throughout your childhood and adulthood?
Yeah, it's been about 10 years since I've been there, so I'm not going to lie, I'm a little rusty there, and I had it on my bucket list for this year, but I've been there several times. I definitely remember it vividly. It's the area that my family's from is up north, Puerto Plata, and we're basically from El Campo. And that area is not like Santo Domingo at all. not where we're from. But it's basically, it's on my bucket list. I definitely have a few places. There are a few things that I want to do in Dominican Republic, without a doubt, that isn't typical for most Dominicans. Because, I'm like a nature guy, so I'll try to go over there and try to kayak down one of the rivers. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the type of experience I want to have next time I go.
Yeah. Okay. So between like the city life in DR and the country life, you definitely prefer more of that campo nature setting over there.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I actually miss everything about what I experienced when I was a kid in Puerto Plata. Basically, just taking showers in the river. All the farm animals, the mountains of mangoes, sugar canes everywhere. Like I like that area a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah, my family's from a town called Bonao, which is like a smack dab in the middle of the country, and it's definitely a lot of mountains around, a lot of rivers in that area. So for people that are into the nature thing, most of DR, honestly, it's just beautiful nature all around.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different ecosystems in DR as well. You know, you have your beach areas, you have your mountain areas. There's even a desert area in the southwestern portion of DR, which I saw for the first time my last trip. So it was very interesting.
Now I'm gonna need you to be my tour guide next time. I did not know about a desert in Dominican.
Yeah, I was shocked. It didn't even look like DR. Even my daughter, she was like, "This looks like Australia." Like just like the rocky mountain type of plateaus and very like unvegetated, like the complete opposite of what you see in like the Cibao.
Wow, yeah. Now that just goes to show you, like when I went back, we pretty much made the trip straight to Santo Domingo, and then we'd go up north, like through Santiago and then Puerto Plata, and
Yeah.
I know my other family members been to Punta Cana, but that's the resort area, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been to Punta Cana once. Very nice. I mean, I think most of the resorts in general are very nice, but yeah. Would you say there's any aspects of Dominican culture that you feel like you enjoy the most, whether it be music, dance, food? Is there anything that like it's like this is my thing?
Oh, it's the food. I mean, I try to be in ketosis now to try to keep myself, you know, in tune, like healthy wise, because you know, Dominican food is not necessarily the best food to have in terms of like.
We eat a lot of fried food, a lot of fried.
Yeah, but even like the stuff that's not fried, like mango or sancocho or anything like that, like you basically.
A lot of carbs, right?
Yeah, which I don't react to as well. I mean, I guess I don't know what it is about me, but it's I do when I'm in ketosis, I do a lot better. So I try to. It's my cheat food. That's my soul food. When I know I want to have something that I really really want, and I'm like, forget about my health for today. Oh man, I'm going to the Dominican shop right here, without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about how your parents met, because I remember you mentioned in your video that your father was a doctor in DR.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really hear about Indians going to DR, but tell us about that, like how your father got to DR, how your parents met, etc.
Yeah. So my mother's always been in DR. She's got ties literally going back to the days of slavery. Like there's only one person that we know of that came in on my mother's side that, you know, she was from Spain directly, and this was only my great grandmother. So that's the only person that wasn't already in Dominican Republic at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Father, he was born in Mumbai. He's like basically pure Indian, and he you know, he didn't go to Dominican Republic first from Mumbai. He actually first went to NYU and then to Harvard and to Santiago to go to medical school over there. And that's where my mom was already going to medical school as well. So they met, and here I am. But I will say there's a lot of Indians that were in the medical school in Dominican Republic. Like, I don't know too much about whether they stayed or not, but I can tell you that both my mother and my father told me that there was a lot of Indians just in those days.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I had never really heard about Indians going to DR or attending school there. You know, I've always heard of like other groups, like, you know, the Asian, like the East Asian, like Koreans, Chinese, whatever, Japanese have gone, Arabs that have gone to DR. But yeah, I didn't know there were also Indians that had gone there, or in particular to Santiago. So that's a very little interesting bit of history there. So did your father ever tell you how he adopted to Dominican society and, you know, being in like a new country with a different language, you know, different culture, different people? Did he ever tell you anything about that?
Yeah, well, similar to me, my father loved to study languages, and he basically learned Spanish in about 3 months. And then after that, it was just introducing vocabulary to him. So he assimilated to Dominican culture really easily. And he brought a little bit of his own culture as well. Like, my mom was able to learn a little bit about him, and he was able to learn a little bit about her. But at the end of all of it, he was basically like an adopted Dominican. No Dominican genetic, like there's no genetics from him that's Dominican, but culture-wise, he definitely assimilated. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if there's a such thing as a first-generation person that goes to the Dominican Republic and can consider themselves Dominican, without any genetics to the blend we've had in history, he's like a prototype.
Okay, interesting. And did he remain living in DR?
Well, they actually both left DR to come to America.
Oh, that's right.
I'm a doctor here. He wanted to be a doctor here, and she just wanted to bring us all over here because in those days, um, there was a lot of stuff going on. My mom didn't really have the best experiences. Our family didn't have the best experiences in Dominican Republic. Like there was some stuff that happened, and she definitely just wanted to get away from. It's not like the entire island is ignorant, but there are some parts of the island where kidnapping, rape, theft. There are some parts that if you're dealing with that stuff, yeah, and you probably do. Anybody would want to get out of that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So going back to your video, I know you mentioned that you were not as in tune with your Indian side, but are there any aspects of Indian culture or Indian history that have kind of stood out to you or that you learned about? And how would you compare what you do know to Dominican culture? Like, are there any big similarities or differences that you've noticed?
Yeah, to me, the food is very similar. Like, there's a lot of difference, but the way it's just like, your base is rice, then you put something on top of it, and then maybe you have a meat, maybe. But in India, I know they got a lot of vegetarians over there. But no, that's really like my goal. I want to get more in tune with my Indian roots. I want to make a trip over there, as well as my African roots. I mean, I've always felt like I had some sort of connection to Spain because of the way Dominicans are, you know what I'm saying? Like we basically like that's one of the first things we identify with, or we're brainwashed to identify with. But yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list to get more in tune with my Indian side, my Indian roots, and same thing with my African roots. I want to get to Africa ASAP. Exactly what's going on.
Okay, cool. And do you keep in touch with any of your relatives on your Indian side?
I've actually never met any of my relatives on my Indian side. I was born in Dominican Republic. I always grew up with my mother, who's pure Dominican. My father and me were the only ones with Indian names in our entire family. So everyone else, they're Dominican as hell, and you can tell we're Indio.
Yeah. Okay. You ever watch Bollywood movies?
I've seen some Bollywood movies, but honestly, they're like stopping bullets and the cars are like they're like flipping cars over people. It's pretty intense over there. I would honestly rather watch a novela, but I've
Really?
never seen a novela from Dominican Republic. Most of the ones I've seen are from Mexico.
Yeah, same. I think most of Latin America, the majority of the novelas that we've seen were the Mexican ones.
Mm-hmm. And I grew up thinking it was Dominican. I grew up thinking,
really?
Oh yeah, in my house, like I never asked the question. So is this Dominican or not? Like to me, everything Spanish was Dominican. And then after a while, like educate yourself, and you're just like, oh wait, that's Mexican. What I'm saying? Bro, I was saying tigre a lot when I was like really young, and the first time I learned in Spanish, like in my Spanish class, they told me it meant tiger, and I was over here like tiger. That means gangster. What I'm saying? Over here in the hood, like talking about digging, and they're over here just like that means tiger, bro. And then when I went home and I was like, oh my god, it does mean tiger. And I was like, what's wrong with us? What I'm saying? It's just pretty funny how things turned out. Like the little bit you start learning over every year over year. Yeah, that's just how it went.
Okay, interesting. Going back to the Indian thing though, I actually took a class in college. It was like a introduction to world music class, but I didn't realize when I signed up for the class that it was actually specifically about Indian music. So I mean, I was already in the class, but I decided to stay in it. But it was actually really interesting. I learned about different styles of Indian music and a few different Indian artists and like the instruments that they used. So God, I don't remember their names now, but yeah, that was pretty cool. I've never really studied much about Indian culture before that. So that was pretty cool. We watched a few Indian movies in the class. I've always really loved like the Indian attire when it comes to like weddings and even their style of doing makeup, because I'm into makeup. So it was very, very vibrant culture for sure. Very interesting.
Without a doubt. That's one of the main reasons I want to get back over there, because it's actually India in itself. Like the more I learn about it, the more I realize that India is like almost its own continent. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it has so many different groups of peoples in there. It's a blend in itself. Like people from outside of India may look at India and just look at it as, oh, it's just India, everyone. But there's many differences within India that the more you learn, the more you realize, wow, it's just like, don't think you know everything. Go ahead and just start learning. You're definitely gonna be entertained by everything that you learn about the culture over there, and then also all the ties that it almost feels like, I don't know. It's almost like Indian food kind of influenced a lot of the Western foods, like
Mm.
but that goes with Africa as well. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, but I think I read somewhere that that's where like everybody started eating plantains first.
Actually, you know what? I heard something similar. I heard
Yeah,
something similar.
sure.
Yeah.
Though. I don't want
I like Indian food, to be honest. There's an Indian spot over here that I always order DoorDash food. I like, because it's spicy. I like spicy food.
Yeah,
I always get like this really hot I don't know what it's called, but it's like rice with like a very spicy potato and chicken thing. Anyway, so yeah, Indian food is lit. So now I want to ask, so your experience growing up, being bicultural, how did that affect how you identify? Did you always just grow up saying, oh, I'm just Dominican and Indian, or did you ever feel like you weren't Dominican enough, or like you weren't Indian enough? How was that experience for you?
So I kind of went in phases, because as you grow up and you're a little kid, it's not necessarily like you really have like an identity like that yet, because you don't really understand countries and cultures. It's in its entirety. But with me, I always actually thought I was 100% Dominican up until a certain point, and then it was like, oh, now I started learning that my name is actually Indian. And then I learned I'm half Indian, half Dominican. But in the neighborhood I grew up in, we were pretty much the only Dominican family there was. Everybody else was black. And the way I was like, it was like family. You know what I'm saying? Like, I pretty much, like all throughout middle school, I would just say, yeah, if somebody asks me if I'm black, I say, yeah. If somebody asks me if I'm Dominican, I say, yeah. If somebody asks me if I'm Indian, I say, yeah. I never really go, um, like I'm half Indian and half Dominican, just leave it at that. But if they want me to clarify, I will let them know. Yeah, I'm half Indian and then half Dominican, black Dominican, so that they understand that. Because I feel like there's a lot of differences between not in genetics. Genetics, black people from Dominican Republic and black people from America, we all come from Western Africa. But in terms of culture, that's just something that has to be specified, because it's like, yeah, no, it's not the exact same as an African American, but it's similar to what an African Dominican would be, and that's what we are. That's our family, at least. Not every Dominican family, but.
Interesting. So yeah, you calling yourself a Black Dominican. I already know there's some people out there that would disagree. Identity politics when it comes to Dominicans tends to be a hot topic, and people have a lot of different opinions when it comes to that. I don't know. I could see somebody being like, well, you're only a quarter black. Like, how are you going to call yourself black?
No,
But,
at least where that would happen as well. But at the end of the day, I'm the only, like, I'm a quarter black because I'm half Indian. And at the end of the day, after my Indian influence at 50%, the next biggest influence I have is African. So for me, it's either, I'm half Indian, and then what's next? It's African. And when I grew up with pretty much just black people. So it's always felt natural to me, and it feels even more natural after my DNA ancestry, basically just kind of getting it solidified. Hey, a lot of people may not know too much about genetics, but a quarter, that's the equivalent of a whole grandparent right there, which, you only have 4 grandparents. If one of them is black, I'm not going to disrespect that, at all. That's my ancestor, and I'm trying to get back to Africa to learn as much as I possibly can, get in tune with everything.
Okay. Okay. I know you've seen my DNA results before, and I am a little over half African descent, and I didn't really grow up identifying as black. At least when I was coming up, the only people that really used that as like a label or like a identity were African Americans. People called me Spanish, because back then anybody who was Hispanic or Latino, people just called you Spanish. So I was either that or Dominican. But I do feel like most people, when they looked at me, they saw a racially black person. Now, where I was from, that varies. I think because in my area, I grew up in Virginia. I've lived here my whole life. And I think since people here aren't that used to seeing Dominicans, I would get people say, are you Ethiopian? A lot of people ask if I'm Ethiopian. I've literally had Ethiopian women come up to me speaking their language, and I'm just like, what? So I think because of that, that's why I get lumped in with them. But yeah, it's very interesting. I would put that I was Black on paper. Like if I had to fill out a form or something, I check the Hispanic box, and for the race box, I would check Black. But yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like since I've been on YouTube, I've really had like my identity and my phenotype really picked apart. And, I'll have on one hand people saying, well, you're over 50% African. You're definitely Black. Like you're a Black woman. But then I also have people on the other hand saying, you're mixed. You're very clearly mixed. You can see it in your face, in your hair, this and that. You could pass for this or that. So I don't know. It's just been interesting seeing how people can perceive you so differently. And again, when it comes to like the racial boxes and all that stuff, people, I don't know, they have a lot of different perspectives when it comes to that.
No, yeah. Well, I definitely think, going back to something that you said earlier just now, you mentioned how you never identified as Black. Well, there is a distinction between identifying as Black here in America, because if people might assume that you're saying that you're African American. But
yeah.
When I say I'm Black, I mean, I have a lot of African ancestry from Dominican Republic. So there's a bit of a difference there, because that's why I think the conflict is, between Dominicans and Black people in America. I think there's a little conflict there of, are you Black as in, are you Black like American Black? It's like,
yeah,
Dominican Black. So genetically we're the same, but I mean, culture wise, that's what I think people are trying to make the distinction between. Me, I just try to specify to everybody. Now, yeah, pretty much I got Black in me from my Dominican side, a pretty good chunk of it. So half of my is African, which I'm not gonna not claim that. Not in a million years. Not now. I mean, I've always claimed it before in my life. So after the DNA ancestry, it was actually, I always believed I was only 20%. Just due to my, features and stuff like that. And seeing it as 25, and after learning about how genealogists interpret that, I couldn't have gotten better news.
Okay. I've said in a video in the past that I don't shy away from identifying as a Black Dominican. And when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm like 100% African. Obviously, I'm not. But I even before I did my ancestry, I always saw myself as a morena, a negra. I've said it a billion times. My mom's nickname for me is Negra, which for us, and I've also said this before, being called negro or morena is not a negative thing whatsoever. So when you hear that your whole life, and I feel like I was darker as a kid. I don't know. Somehow I've gotten a little lighter as I've gotten older. But, when you constantly grow up hearing people calling you negra, calling you morena, like you kind of internalize that. And again, it wasn't like in a negative way. But so that kind of shaped how I've always seen myself. So, and also comparing myself to the much lighter skinned Dominicans, either in my family or going to the DR, I was always like, yeah, yo soy morena. Like that's just what I am. But again, on YouTube, people have very differing opinions. And I'm just like, okay, look, at the end of the day, I'm Dominican, but you can clearly see what I am. So it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I think being Dominican, really just to identify just the small difference in, because like there aren't only Black people in America, there aren't only Black people in Dominican Republic, there aren't only Black people in Brazil. So I would imagine, Black people in Brazil would have to specify, yeah, I'm like Brazilian Black, something along those lines, or Black people from Dominican Republic were Dominican Black. Like there's a small difference. Like we all speak different languages. I'm saying Black people from Brazil speak Portuguese, so it's if they come to America and they just say, oh, I'm Black, that's true. But I think everyone's just trying to make the distinction that people just know a little bit more about what type of Black, from where, what experience they had, their history.
Yeah.
You said something Moreno thing, and I wanted to just touch upon that because I'm the youngest of 5. I'm the youngest one. I came over when I was 3, but all my brothers and sisters three of them are pure Dominican. They don't have the same father. And, two of them are without a doubt over 50% Black. One of them, we already did her DNA ancestry. She's about 53% West African. And then my brother Philly would definitely have more African than she would. So yeah, I just, in case anybody thinks that Moreno or anything like that is disrespectful, no. My brothers and sisters, they get called that. I get called Indio. Like, it's just a thing in Dominican Republic. It shows love, if anything. It shows that you're a part of the fam.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how much you have watched from like other Dominicans on YouTube, but something I also wanted to point out is there's a lot of I would say I've noticed more of like a polarizing view when it comes to like the racial stuff. And you have like a growing sector of like, very pro-Black, I guess you could say, Hispanics or Dominicans in particular. And then you also have like a growing, very pro-European, pro-white, very anti-Black side kind of growing as well, which to me I find very odd. I don't know why there's Dominicans that are feeding into either of these extremes when Dominicans as a whole were like literally a mix of predominantly three different cultures or races, whatever. We're a mix of African, European, and Native. I think most Dominicans are that mix. Of course, you're going to have those that are pretty much straight up Black or straight up white. But for the most part, we're a mix. So I've never quite understood why you now have people feeding into like these extremes when it comes to the racial thing. Like, I feel like, why? Like, it is what it is. We are a product of hundreds of years of mixing between the Spanish, the Native, and the African. So why all this now?
I don't know why people shy away from it, but Dominican Republic would not be Dominican Republic had it not been for its African influence. I'm telling you right now, all the swag that Dominicans have, all the music, all that stuff, there's a lot of African influence in it. So if you really want to call yourself Dominican, you better hope you got some African in you. I mean, that to me is basically a part of the mix. Now, it doesn't mean if you don't have any African at all in you that you're not Dominican. No, there are some Dominicans who are European, and what makes you Dominican isn't necessarily just your genetic makeup, just as long as the history there. Because, I mean, it could have been possible a Spanish colonizer comes over here and just only breeded with other Spanish or Portuguese women and stuff like that. And maybe you're a Dominican with roots here that never had any African influence in your genetics. Highly unlikely, but I've seen it, but that doesn't make you any less Dominican or anything like that. I'm just trying to say, in terms of what makes Dominican Republic today is the mixture, that African mixed with the Iberian Peninsula, mixed with Taino, that all of that together, that's genetically what makes it Dominican. And then historically, you could have a few different routes that people go to. You could be, Spanish and Taino, or you could be Black and Taino, or you could have all three, or maybe no Taino at all. So it's a lot of different mixes out there. I mean, if you ever see my family, we're all different shades. You know what I'm saying? All of us.
Right. Oh man, they're gonna start saying you pro-Black, you pro-Black. But no, what you said though is something I've said before, and maybe this is why I get labeled as pro-Black. I don't know. But I've said before, like, y'all, let's keep it real. At the end of the day, as Dominicans, what makes our culture so lit out of everything, I gotta say, it's the African influence. I'm sorry, some of y'all not gonna like that I say that. But to me, I feel like that's what sets us apart, even from other Hispanics. Like, I've always felt like that's something to be proud of. I don't know why I don't know when they hear about, for example, how we have like the highest amount of African ancestry percentage wise in our gene pool out of all the Spanish speaking Caribbean countries. I'm like, or not Caribbean, Latin American countries in general. I'm like, y'all, this isn't something to be ashamed of. Like, this is why we lit, y'all. This is why our music and our dance and this and that is literally heard throughout the world. Not all Hispanic countries can say that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. No. But at the end of the day, though, I mean, just that blend of that African, that European, that Native, it's it's so evident literally in all layers of Dominican culture and society. You see that blend in the music. You see that mixture with the instruments, with the Spanish guitar, the African drums, the Taino, the huira, which is, Taino. You see it in the food, in our traditions, even the language, even though of course the foundation is Spanish, but there's Taino words that we still use. There's even some African words that we still use. And even the way that we speak Spanish, of course, is most influenced by, Spanish people. But the way that we talk is also influenced by that, the African people that were there. So again, you see that blend literally in all aspects of the culture. So I've always said, just be proud of everything. There's no need for us to go to these extremes. Just be proud of everything that you are and of everything that makes you Dominican.
No, yeah, definitely. That's how I always been. I've never been like, oh, I'm not black, like that. I've never been like that, never before. Like literally, if I show you a couple pictures of me in middle school, I am so much, this is my light skin, this is the light skin version of me. But I get so dark to the point where it's like, to me, there was almost no differences other than the language between Dominicans and black people, like, and especially with the family I grew up in, and then going to like New Year's parties, you would really, it was mostly, we all had at least but we were all melanated pretty well. So it's, when I hear Dominicans who are melanated say, oh yeah, I'm not black, it's like I think they're just trying to say culture wise, but genetic wise, you can't be that. You really can't really think that you're not black. Like genetics wise, you got quite a big chunk of you. Like if you're only 1% African, I understand, but like anything over 10% is pretty significant, so I think people need to just start being and getting in touch with it if they just want to keep a healthy mind, healthy mindset at all. I think it's much better for them and better for everybody else too. It kind of brings everybody together at that point.
So how would you respond to, say, someone saying, well, you're one dropping yourself into blackness? How would you respond to that?
5% ain't one dropping. Like I understand the one drop rule. And even then, like even with one drop, like me and my ancestry, I joked around and I was 1% European Jewish. But, I really do want to find out a little bit more about European Jewish influence now. Like how I got to Dominican Republic, like what exactly, if I could trace back what exactly it came from, that would be amazing, so I'm not going to one drop myself into blackness because I don't feel like that's what I'm doing. Like I literally have, I'm 6'4", I got a long Achilles, there's a lot of things in me that I see in black people that I don't see in my other backgrounds. So I definitely have always felt that. And then growing up in a black neighborhood, like with me, it would be impossible for me to say that I'm not black. It would just be impossible. But I always specify black Dominican. It's a slightly different experience, very similar experience, but slightly different.
Okay, gotcha. Well, going back to the Jews, I actually did a video on the Jews that went to DR. Trujillo brought a whole bunch of them to DR in the 1940s, and they settled in Sosua primarily. They were escaping, what was going on in Europe at the time. So they set up their own little area there. So that's one way out some of the Jewish influence came in.
Oh, look into that. That's interesting. That might actually be a pretty good indicator of what might have happened. But I'm guessing it was from my great grandmother, who was directly from Spain. But I'm thinking right now, but that's interesting. I'm going to have to look into that because that sounds like it could possibly connect more dots for me.
Yeah. So how do you feel about, so I know you were born in DR, but so, I mean, you're not a Dominican American, but how do you feel about Dominicans here in the US? And I guess just that experience of growing up Dominican, but also growing up American and how that affects us and how we view ourselves. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, do you feel that we should also claim being American at the same time?
No, well, I definitely say once I move here to America and you become a little Americanized, you can now include that on top of what you are. But, there's lots of different ways to be Dominican. I mean, I know the one, if you're Dominican born in Dominican Republic and have two Dominican parents and you only speak Spanish and you've never been to America, you're probably a part of these police that try to go and just try to like say, oh, you're not Dominican. But if people who come to America and were born here to two Dominican parents aren't Dominican, then what are they? Because to be called American at that point, you're talking about culture. But genetically, they got that blend in their blood that honestly, as a Dominican, you know, I talk to all my Dominican friends up here, like everybody up here who's Dominican, you know, most of them were born here. You know what I'm saying? But no one's just saying, oh, I'm just straight up American. Like,
Yeah.
they're letting people influence that upon them. Like, if you're Dominican, you know it. You know, you just know it. No one can really bend that for you. You know the food that's in the house, or the music that your parents be playing in the house, or just where you're gonna go when you're trying to visit family. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. But there's lots of different forms. Like me, I'm half Dominican. And I can tell you right now, I have a more solidified Dominican identity than most full Dominicans here that were born in America. Speaking with them, it's almost like they like the conversations with me. They don't like the police. They like the conversations with me because it's more inclusive. And at the end of the day, you know, like, you know how many Dominicans, you know, move to like Spain or Italy, and they had their kids there, and it's like, so what is someone, you know, born to two Dominican parents or even one Dominican parent in Italy supposed to say? Like, they're Italian with no Italian like influence. Like you could say you're Italian nationality wise, and then also culture wise. Now if you start learning the ways, but genetically you're Dominican. If you got that Iberian blood in you, you got West African and Taino. That's the biggest indicator. If you got Taino in you, because that's not the very common, or you could be Puerto Rican as well. But if you got that Taino in you, that's like saying, oh yeah, you're super Dominican. You know, that's super Dominican. Not saying that, this is just a disclaimer. If you got no Taino in you, I do not want to exclude you. I know there's several Dominicans who came up with 0% Taino, but that means in the scheme of things, that means, you know, nothing other than the fact that unless you do have it, like if someone's 40% Taino, I mean, yeah, we're basically electing him as president next. Like, and I don't know about y'all, but I'm voting for him. You know, I'm like, that's we're trying to keep it alive.
Yeah. So, okay, you brought up a lot of good points there. And yes, there's definitely a lot of policing when it comes to Dominicans, particularly online. I don't really see this happening as much in real life or really at all, at least not where I'm at. But yeah, a lot of policing, a lot of people saying, oh, you're not really Dominican, or, you know, I've had my identity policed quite a bit, you know, particular individuals saying that I'm not really Dominican, I'm a Haitian pretending to be Dominican. And, you know, I've seen other Dominicans get told, oh, they're not really Dominican, or they're Cocol or whatever, you know. It happens sometimes. And yeah, I'm gonna keep it real. I see it happening more with the Blacker Dominicans, or depending on like your ideology. If they don't agree with your mentality, oh, you're a Haitian, whatever. Oh, and another thing, I've had people say, because I grew up in Virginia, that I'm not that culturally Dominican, or I must not know much about Dominican culture or whatever the hell. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah. And it's funny because I sometimes look at some of these other Dominicans and I feel like they're more culturally American or New York. They're New York than anything else. And I'm like, I'm more Dominican than y'all. Y'all gonna talk about me, but whatever. At the end of the day, like, even though I grew up in an area where there's not a heavy Dominican population, I grew up in a very Dominican household with a very Dominican family. So my experience was with Dominicans straight from DR, not really other Dominican Americans. So that shaped how I am also. And I feel like that's why I can relate a lot to sometimes Dominicans from DR more than Dominican Americans. But anyway, yeah, policing people need to chill with that. But as far as, you know, Dominican Americans, or even, I think for the most part, most take pride in being Dominican and they claim that over anything. But occasionally you do run into those that are like, well, I'm American. I was born here in the US. And maybe they're more into American culture than anything else. But it doesn't change what you are genetically. And for people out there that, for example, those that don't speak Spanish, because that's another big thing, not just with Dominicans, but I feel like a lot of Hispanic Americans in general, they sometimes are very self-conscious about that. And other people may tell them, well, you're not really from this country or that country because you were born in the US and you don't speak Spanish, which, you know, again, nobody can change what you are. Nobody can take that away from you. So that's how I feel about that. Like, don't let others dictate what you are. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, that just that logic, of, you have two Dominican parents or even one Dominican come to America, and let's say you were born here, and then automatically some of these racist Dominicans or whatever, the policing Dominicans, they start saying, oh, you're not really Dominican. Like, to me, that logic, there's so many flaws with it. I mean, what if there's two Indian people that come over here to America and they have a kid, and this kid is, pretty Indian, but also gets Americanized. You don't hear Indian people going, you're not Indian, you're American. And you don't hear American people going, you're not Indian, you're American. You don't hear anybody going, you're not Indian, you're American. You know what I'm saying? You hear everybody saying you're Indian, and you're American now too. It's like American culture, like nationality wise and culture wise, but genetically, you got to throw in what you are genetically, especially if someone living in America, because we're not natives to this specifically. So at the end of the day, there's many ways to be considered Dominican, and anyone who just tries too hard, that I don't know what, like if these, all these Dominicans that are over here just like literally trying to make everyone look less Dominican just because they speak with a little bit more of a Dominican accent, or they speak with a little bit more of the Dominican vocabulary or anything like that. I'm just like, bruh, you act like, and then what's my boy Alfred? My boy Alfred's pure Dominican too. You know what I'm saying? But he don't speak Spanish. But trust me, he's a Dominican. Like, I'm pretty sure if he did his DNA ancestry, he'd have like 15%. I ain't even gonna lie about that. And he definitely has the typical blend. I mean, and on top of that, I mean, imagine saying someone's not Dominican. You guys probably might end up having relatives on DNA ancestry together.
Yeah.
Very good possibility. So there's a lot of flaws with that train of thought, and I definitely do not align with it. With me, I'm a very inclusive type of person. And if anything, in my neighborhood, I was adopting, all my black boys. I was just like, yo, man, you're Dominican now. Come and you eat sancocho with me, you're Dominican now, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, and they loved it too. It's not like people just shied away from Dominican food. Like, it's, I don't know. I'd rather be more inclusive than be like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the videos of some of these other, I don't know what to even refer to them as, these self-hating or I don't know how to refer to these guys, but they got problems. Let's hope I don't get trolled because of this, because of them. I already know about these people. It's just no, like.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. There's a few of them out there. There's a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you said though about like adopting other people, I think part of it has to do because we have such a strong and distinct culture. I think not only does that draw people to us, but they're just very interested in once they get in touch with us and our culture, like they really like it. And for me, I've said it a billion times, most of my friends were Black American, or like African, straight African. And most of them that came around me and my family, like they definitely showed an interest. It was more like I influenced them more than they influenced me. I mean, of course, I was influenced by American culture, just living in the U.S. So, I grew up with a very dual experience of, I grew up with my merengue and bachata, but at the same time with, my R&B, my hip hop, Backstreet Boys fans, Spice Girls, all that. So I had a very mixed experience. But at the same time, especially as I got a little older, like they expressed a lot of interest in Dominican culture. Like all my Black girlfriends, they all dance bachata, they dance merengue. Some of them even get mistaken for being Dominican. Yeah. So I feel like that just kind of naturally happens when other people come in contact with us, because we just have a very fun and just, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, we're just also very welcoming people. So people are drawn to that. I don't know.
That's actually something I actually wanted to mention earlier. It's like part of being Dominican is accepting all of the mixes that go into it, because it's we are very accepting people, and for there to be so many migrations into the Dominican Republic, there's just, we're like a little mini America, but we're Dominican Republic. We're different. We're not America, but we've had that mixture. So it's like anyone who does their DNA ancestry from Dominican Republic, expect the three foundational, regions to be in there, but also expect a little bit here and there, some other things, because you never know what's in there. I actually thought I was going to get a little Middle Eastern in there, because the president he's got Lebanese roots. So, and I thought maybe I could have, because I'm learning a little Arabic on top of these other languages I'm learning. I feel like I pick on pretty well to it. So I was expecting a little Middle Eastern, a little bummed out I didn't get a little Middle Eastern or none of that other stuff, but I'm happy with as many as I got. To me, the more diverse, the better. That's just how I am.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't initially get Middle Eastern. I think in one of my updates, I did like 1 or 2%. But yeah, no, you're right. There literally has been migrations from all over the world into DR. Some, of course, in bigger groups, some smaller. So yeah, it's not surprising at all to get, like you said, maybe a little bit of Middle Eastern, a little bit of maybe East Asian or whatever. Like, yeah, it's not surprising at all.
Oh.
So let me ask you, how do you feel about the relationship between DR and Haiti, or how do you feel about Haitians in general? I know people always say, oh my God, Dominicans can't have a conversation without bringing Haitians up, but let's keep it real. At the end of the day, we affect each other. So I would just like to know, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I grew up around a lot of Haitians, and I've always considered Haiti to be like family. Like my brother married a Haitian woman, and honestly, to me, it's just like, and you should see, like when you watch these DNA ancestries from Haiti, you're gonna see they got Taino in them too. So I don't know, man. It's like to say that Haiti is just like completely separate, and like I don't know. I don't agree with that either. To me, there are cousins, there are brothers. It saddens me when I see so much hate coming from the Dominican side to the Haitian side. I'm like, when I start hearing these things like, "Oh, you're not Dominican, you're Haitian," when I start hearing that stuff, I gotta either put somebody in their place or educate them or do something right then and there. But it's just for someone like me who, I grew up in Miami. I got a lot of Haitian friends. A couple of them I consider family. So it's like at that point, I know where I stand with Haiti, and I wish all of Dominican Republic stood there with me. But I know every group of people got that small, minority of racists that basically get so much more attention than the majority does. So, if Dominicans were a little bit more like we should be like anti-police. We should just be putting these racists in their place. And honestly, like if they're starting to say stuff about, Haitians or Black Dominicans or anything like that, we got to shut them down. We got to cancel them. We got to let everybody know they're a disgrace. We don't claim them at all. But yeah, that's where I stand. I mean, I love Haiti. To this day, I still got like the smartest guy I know is from Haiti. You know what I'm saying? So till this day, I still have always had the stance that, if you want to say there's a distinction between us culturally, sure. They speak French, we speak Spanish. That's probably the main distinction between us. Also, genetically, they might have a little bit more African than we do. Well, they definitely probably have more African than we do. But they're like cousins. To me, they're like cousins. They're like brothers. It's like we all come from the same island, and we all deal with the same BS from corrupt governments and everything.
Well, that is true, the corrupt governments. Okay. No. Yeah, so I definitely don't agree with like shunning them or disrespecting them or having hate towards them, especially not on a racial basis, which, like you said, I do feel that is a minority of Dominicans that just hate them based on race. But yeah, I've touched on this subject multiple times on my channel, and I've also had other Dominicans come onto my channel and talk about it. I think it's a little more complicated than people try to make it out to be. Just because, there is such a large immigrant Haitian population in DR, and economically or politically that can bring about its own set of issues. But as far as being like prejudiced towards them or discriminating against them just because they're Haitian, that of course I don't agree with. My last interview before yours was actually with a Haitian guy. We met up in DC. We had a great interview, and we were able to have a decent grown-up conversation. We talked about what's going on in Haiti and things like that. So I don't know. I think we should just try to be more open to having dialogue with one another, because at the end of the day, we're on the same island, and what happens on one side affects what happens on the other side. So again, I know it's tough, especially when you're dealing with two countries that do have corrupt governments and certain people that are only looking out for their own interests in both governments. So I don't know. It makes the situation difficult. But anyway.
Yeah, we can thank Trujillo for a lot of that, towards towards Haiti, like from some of these Dominicans, like they're basically just still in their brainwashed state of mind from the Trujillo era. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it made it, you know, a lot of the generations of Dominicans are traumatized, but I think if they opened up, educated themselves a bit more, possibly do their own DNA ancestry so that they can kind of, you know, just kind of see the relationship between us. Like we all have that same like historical background in terms of what happened on the island. I mean, sure there are differences between Haiti and Republic, but I like to side with the similar. Like notice on the DNA ancestry test it says indigenous Haiti and Dominican Republic because the Tainos were all over the island, and honestly, that's one of the biggest indicators of you know where we're from. That is just that blood right there. You know, it's not seen anywhere else. And, oh well, Puerto Rico, sure, but you know, in terms of like everywhere else, I feel like that's what binds us together too. You know what I'm saying? Just to kind of remind us, hey man, we all went through a similar experience, you know, for the past like 300 years, like our generations, our ancestors. So, yeah.
Okay. I can already see some interesting comments coming from this interview. But you know, hopefully you don't get trolled.
Yeah, I mean,
with the you're pro black, you're pro Haitian, blah blah blah. Some of the people on here do.
well, I mean, I'm not sure what they mean by like I'm pro almost everything, you know, like as long as it's not you know, anything that I feel like doesn't make any sense, you know what I'm saying? Like it's if I'm just gonna be like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, we're white. It's like, does that sound right coming from a guy like me? No, you know, it's just, no, we're both melanated. Actually, you know, growing up, that's why you actually said this earlier. You know, I was Jehovah's Witness, and the church would go to, it was a bunch of Black Dominicans. So it's like when I'd go back to my neighborhood and there wasn't any Dominicans there, but it was all Black people. I pretty much, that's where I was like, you know, I was real young and pretty much just making it all seemed the same to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, oh yeah, I go to church, Black Dominicans, I come over here, Black Americans. To me, it was all the same until I started, you know, seeing like and started getting educated. Oh, okay, this is where we're from. You get more in tune with your geography and your culture and everything like that. So,
yeah. Okay.
But there was definitely an exchange of cultures, just like how it was for you. You know,
Yeah.
you'd be in the house and it'd be super Dominican. You know, you'd be hearing, you know, merengue playing, and then you go out into the streets. I was, you know, we were listening to rap with my boys. It's just how it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up in the United States, period, it's kind of hard not to kind of have like that multicultural experience unless you grow up in an area that is just very, very one group. Like, I don't know, let's say maybe like Washington Heights in New York, still predominantly Dominican. So maybe, I don't know, you're going to have a more very Dominican experience. But I think in most other parts of the US, yeah, you're going to come in contact with people of other cultures, other forms of music, other foods. So yeah, I mean, like I said, that was my experience. You know, I had my Dominican upbringing, but I also, you know, had my American experience. I, you know, learned some Sudanese music because I had a lot of Sudanese friends. Of course, there's a lot of Central Americans here, so I got exposed to like some of their culture and listening to or going to their parties and listening to cumbia, which is something we don't really listen to like at my family gatherings, you know. So, okay.
Would you say Humia?
Cumbia, yeah.
Cumbia. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never heard that. Never.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, no. I got not familiar with some of the terms up there.
Okay, yeah. Cumbia is really, it's originally Colombian, but it's very popular in like Mexico, Central America, and parts of South America. Yeah, I think the Caribbean doesn't listen to it as much, but there's particular songs that are very popular, I think, all throughout Latin America, but for the most part, we don't really listen to cumbia like that.
Is it similar to like dembow or something like that?
No. It's not like an urban style of music.
Oh, okay.
But traditional, like, yeah. I don't know, maybe I can like send you some, but yeah, definitely a lot of like Central Americans listen to it. Also Mexican music, but I think Mexican music is heard like literally everywhere because even when I've been in DR, I've heard Mexican music over there. And my uncles, they used to play a lot of like older mariachis and stuff like that. So I've been exposed to a little bit of everything, and to be honest, I feel like it kind of helps you to become a bit more well-rounded when you're not just exposed to your own culture and your own people. Like I don't know, I feel like it helps you as a person to grow and, like I said, become more well-rounded.
Without a doubt, like right now, I'm learning Portuguese, and I probably listen to more Brazilian music than anything, or other than classical. So I do try to be as well rounded as possible. I'm not gonna hop in the car and every single time I'm gonna put on just Dominican influenced music. Like I try to get out there. There's a whole world out there, and I'm not trying to be confined to one corner. I know who I am, and I don't know what's out there, and I want to find out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Speaking of Brazilian music, I've kind of started listening to a little more. I've noticed more Dominicans listening to Brazilian. I think they call it funk. I think they call it funk over there. But it's kind of similar to them. Oh, I want to say dembo. I don't know. It's like kind of like an urban style of music. I think they call it funk though. Even though here in the US, funk is something totally different. Brazilian music is lit though. I like Brazilian music.
Oh,
You might not understand it, but
no, I'm starting to catch on, and more and more. The more I listen to it, and the more I'm learning Portuguese, yeah, it's got a similar vibe to, like, I'm not gonna say reggaeton, but it's definitely that urban type of music.
yeah. Yeah.
Hard. It'd be hard to not have a good time. Like I don't want to go ahead and say they're like Bad Bunny and J Balvin now, but I definitely do notice that if people started playing this and bumping this, it'll be almost impossible for you to not like it. It's just good at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Lately, I try to mix up my music, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bachatera, so I listen to a lot of bachata. It's also one of the genres I enjoy dancing the most as well. And I think I can thank my father for that. My father, a lot of my like the males in my family, like my musical taste as far as Dominican music is concerned, was very influenced by the men in my family and what I heard growing up. So yeah, I'm definitely into like a lot, especially like the old school bachata. I'm really, really into all that.
No, yeah, we used to bump that in the house, but I'm not gonna lie, me and my brother, we needed a little bit more work with our dance moves right there. The only time we got to practice when we went to one of these Dominican parties, and all the old ladies would basically just pull you on the dance floor and just force you to either dance merengue or bachata, one of
Mm-hmm.
those.
Yeah, no, my grandfather, my dad's dad, was the one that actually taught me how to dance merengue when I was 7. And from there, yeah, I've always enjoyed dancing. I mean, that's just a big part of, Dominican culture to begin with. Whenever I do come across Dominicans I don't know how to dance, there's a few. I'm like, really? You don't know how to dance? Like,
Yeah.
to me, it's like odd. I feel like,
No,
yeah.
I humble myself and I put myself on the lower end. Like, yeah, I would need to, because like me nowadays, I have not danced bachata or merengue anytime recently. But lately, I've been doing other different types. That's why I'm just like, I know definitely I'll get a lot of hate, from people, the police, that we talked about earlier. It's like, oh, he's like, you don't dance, like you don't do this, you don't do that. It's just like, hey, man, at the end of the day, you're you're just trying to put your identity of being Dominican onto another Dominican.
Mhm.
We come in all shapes, different sizes.
Exactly. We are not a monolith, y'all. I mean, no group is, but we're not a monolith.
I
We're
know
all very different too.
Dominicanese instead of Spanish. You know what I'm saying? And I'm over here just like, that's cool as hell. For anybody not to claim a Dominican that speaks Japanese instead of Spanish, I'm like, wait a second. So you got Taino in you. You got two Dominican parents. You were born here in America, but you speak Japanese. I'm like, no, you still Dominican. You're just Japanese as well. So that's why, I feel like my crowd of people would just, our minds are definitely a little bit more liberated, and we definitely are more inclusive when it comes to culture. We're not just trying to thing. I mean, my go-to is Dominican food, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try other types of food.
Yeah.
I went to a Brazilian place, spoke Portuguese and all that stuff, and they can definitely like, I was actually speaking with Spanish with one of the girls there, and they basically like let me know, oh yeah, it's like we try to incorporate as many like cultures as well. It's not just, oh, you're Brazilian and you got to be super Brazilian, like only Brazilian. No, they try to learn bachata también, and they're over like, we want to learn that too. We want to learn this, we want to learn that. So being well rounded, when not only when it comes to culture, but just with all the knowledge, all your experiences that you can go through, I think it's a little bit more important than just trying to be 100% 24/7, you know, pure.
Yeah. Some people take it to the extreme. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, I 100% am like there. Yes, you know, be patriotic, be proud to be Dominican, blah blah. But some people just too extreme with it. Too extreme with it.
It's natural.
Like, chill.
I'm pretty sure both of us, you know, we're the same way when it comes to like, oh, what do we want to eat, in terms of like, if I'm just looking for something delicious, you already know we're both probably hitting up the same types of places. So it's, to me, it's just, I let it come naturally. I don't necessarily like, I've noticed other people here in America that are Dominican might, you know, put in a little bit of effort just to kind of like start training it. And I'm all for that, because at the end of the day, you do have to kind of try to get tied back to the roots as well. That's what I want to do with my Indian side. You know, I've never been to India. I don't speak any Indian languages, but I still want to try to like get in touch with it, you know.
Yeah, of course.
It's like one of those things that I'm just a little bit more open to, especially, you know, once you're older, you know, you definitely want to appreciate the world. You know, you only got one life to live. Definitely shouldn't try to just be one dimensional on this planet.
Yeah. No, totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, so we are a little bit over an hour. So, Ray, do you have any future plans you want to tell us about, or any future plans for your channel, or just any last statements before we conclude the interview?
No.
Or maybe just anything you want to just say to the audience that's watching, like any.
No, I mean, come check my channel out. It's still a little premature. You know, I only got 3 videos up, and right now it only talks about IQ. So it's like there's so much I can talk about and want to talk about in terms of like, you know, learning languages or just learning things about the world or ancient history. But right now it's just, you know, if you want to just be entertained every once in a while, just come check it out. You might learn a thing or two, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely. So to everyone watching, again, please go to his channel. I will leave the link to his channel down below in the description box and in the pinned comment. Again, it is Pseudo Guru. So, Ray, thank you again for coming onto my channel and having this interview with me. I hope the audience enjoys it. I hope by me exposing you to this side of YouTube, you know, hopefully it brings more positivity to you than not.
No, yeah, I know that. I already know. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to associate with those Dominicans. That's the equivalent of like, you know, a white person in America, you know, basically saying I'm not trying to associate with some of the white people that basically take on the rhetoric of, I don't mess with anybody who don't look like me. You know what I'm saying? So really an inclusive person. Bring it all to me. I accept it.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, to everyone watching, if you haven't liked this video, go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and this is your first time coming across my channel. And I'll check everyone in my next video. Bye.